righty, well, we'll go ahead. We'll dive right in. I'll do a very brief introduction here of the team that we have on our panel today, and I'll give a little bit more thorough introduction to each one as we get there. We have an amazing panel today, true thought leaders and experts, lots of real world experience, everything from ER and critical care, from a vet tech perspective, all the way to the pharma executive world, pharmacy. Obviously, we have plenty of doctors. I'm going to say doctor a lot today, so get ready for that. Almost everybody I introduce is going to have a lot of letters around their name, so bear with me as we go through it. Let's dive in. So first of all, of course, we have Damea Alexander, our founder and CEO. He's the reason we're here today. He has invented the I2F. We also have Dr. Pickett, our CVO. Of course, she believes in the mission, so she's with us here. We have Dr. Hellner, who has over 25 years of experience. I'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a bit. We've got Natasha Nodel. We also have Dr. O'Connor, our CMO, Dr. Klein. She's going to be presenting from a pharmacy perspective. And of course, Michael Handley, as I mentioned, from more of the pharmaceutical perspective. And then at the very end, of course, we have Dr. Temple Grandin, who probably needs very little introduction to our audience. She is amazing, an animal behavior expert, and of course, a professor at CSU. So we'll get to that in just a minute. All right. As with anything, we're gonna start in the beginning. All right. We're gonna start at the very top. So that means Mr. Damea Alexander, our CEO and founder and inventor. You know what? I'm actually gonna let Damea do most of his own introduction, simply because it ties in so beautifully with how we got here and what brought us to this point, and how everything came to be for the I2F. So, Damea, what inspired you to create I2F, and really, how do you see it transforming both the veterinary and human care spaces?
Hey, Nick, and hey, everyone. It's nice to be with you guys today, and thanks for joining. I appreciate those questions, Nick. Let me just first introduce myself and give a little bit of the background, and I'll be sure to answer those questions. So hey, everybody, I'm Damea Alexander. I'm the founder and CEO of Alexander International Innovations. I've been a nurse for 30 years, and I spent 17 of those as a paramedic as well. I've worked in really every hospital unit you can imagine, from ER and critical care, hospice, surgery, even labor and delivery. And so for the last 10 years of my career, I moved into clinical research, and one day I was watching a very expensive medication being prepared and noticed just how much foam was trapped inside that vial. And no matter how careful we were, we couldn't extract all of it. That particular medication costs $10,000 a dose, and the patients who receive it, they get that medication every 28 days, usually for the rest of their life. There's no cure for what they have. And it's made from human plasma, meaning it's a fragile protein-based medication. And so in talking to the infusion nurses, they knew about the issue, but it was pretty much accepted as a normal. And I just remember thinking, this can't be the best that we can do, particularly because it was made of plasma. We all know how precious plasma is. And so I started prototyping. I used whatever I could find. I ended up using a spinal needle that I modified, and I got it to work. And so then I just set out to patent it once I saw that it could actually solve the problem. And so the problem wasn't the nurse's technique. It was actually the design of the delivery system. And we've been giving medications from glass bottles over 100 years. And so the flaw is in the venting process. So in traditional way of this process, the air enters the container through the same port that the fluid exits. So as medication is withdrawn, air travels through the medication to equalize the pressure. That's where the damage begins. So as the air travels through the drug, it creates an air-liquid interface. This agitation generates a shear stress, and that can damage those delicate proteins. That stress causes those proteins to unfold, they lose function and clump together. And that's a process that we call aggregation. The aggregation not only wastes medication, but it can also cause an immune response or hypersensitivity reaction and reduce the efficacy of the drug. So it's costly, it's inefficient, and it compromises care. I2F changes all of that. It delivers the air directly into the headspace, keeping it completely out of the drug pathway. The result is no foaming, no turbulence, just clean, efficient withdrawal every time. What was interesting to me is months into the testing, probably around our third or fourth prototype, I realized something unexpected. Not only could I2F help with infusions, but it also solved another long-standing issue, and that's overpressurization in the multi-dose bottles. Every time you use a needle and syringe to draw up medications, you push a little air into the vial, and over time, that air pressure builds up. And then when you remove the needle, medication can spray out. And that spray, that's lost revenue. I2F balances that pressure in real time. So no spray, no waste. So I2F isn't just a device, it's really a breakthrough, solving those two big problems, the foaming and the pressure buildup. Mechanically, you can think of it like a snorkel. It delivers the air directly into the vial's headspace, equalizing that pressure without sending air directly through the medication itself. Back in 2014, the FDA even published a paper urging all pharmaceutical companies to address the protein aggregation. Most have tried chemical fixes and like adding surfactants and things like that, but I2F solves the mechanical root of the problem. And this isn't limited to human medicine. A few years ago, during the development, one of my own horses was hospitalized, and that's where I saw the veterinary team struggle with the same infusion problems that I'd seen in hospitals. And that's when it kind of hit me, because I was so focused on human care at the time, that this really is a system-wide issue across species, across care settings. And so when I think about the future, I can see I2F in every hospital, every clinic, every practice, human and veterinary. It's already in use, and in some facilities, they're saving over $2,000 a month just from recovering the medication that used to be lost. So I didn't set out to be an inventor. I really just set out to solve a problem that I saw every day, and together with the team, we've built something that works. And Nick, if I can just say one last thing, I feel incredibly blessed to be surrounded by a team that believes in the mission as much as I do. You know, their passion, the belief, and the commitment, it's really the reason that I2F is where it's at today.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for saying that. And it's true. The team that we have around us here at AII is incredible. It is truly an all-star team. It's humbling to walk in and work with such a great group of people every single day. Speaking of great people, I'm actually gonna take it away from you here, Damea. We're gonna move on and we're gonna talk to Dr. Pickett. Obviously, that same mission that you have and that we all share is part of why we're fortunate enough to work with Dr. Pickett and have her on with us today. Dr. Pickett, as I already said, is our CVO, and she's amazing at her job. We're so thankful for it. But she also holds basically C-level titles with 3 other companies, which is, like I said, humbling for the rest of us. It makes her, of course, a true entrepreneur. She is also on the University of Florida Veterinary Medicine Admissions Committee, which is hard to say. So thank you for that challenge. And if all of that wasn't enough, she's also an active volunteer with the Virginia Medical Reserve Corps. I'm sure in her spare time, she's developing a way to make space travel more affordable, or I don't know, something incredible like that. But Dr. Pickett, what have been, I would say, the biggest pain points for vets, and how is I2F helping to address those things?
Well, first, thanks for the introduction. I'm not sure which Dr. Pickett you're talking about, but I will jump in. So the pain points, I would say, in general, it's solving everyday problems in the clinics. When I first saw what Damea was doing, I knew I wanted to be a part of it. So as Chief Vet Officer, my belief in I2F stems from its ability to address real clinical challenges with innovative, science-driven solutions. So from collaborating on white papers and research to strategizing awareness and market adoption, our work together has been focused on really bridging the gap between breakthrough technology and everyday veterinary care. And that's helping clinicians deliver better outcomes for the animals we serve.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and even as we, look at that, really what I want to focus on is those system-wide impacts, and addressing those pain points. Even if they're seemingly small, they add up over time and have a big impact. I'm sure you've seen that, obviously, in your practice as well.
Yeah, for sure. From a clinical perspective, I see the biggest opportunity with I2F in its ability to drive efficiency, efficacy, sustainability, uh, and I'm sure you're going to hear these words mentioned over and over again because that's, I mean, that's why we're here and why we're doing this. And thanks to Damea, but we often talk about improving patient outcomes, but that also includes optimizing how we use our resources, our time, our medications, our teams. I2F helps ensure that we're not wasting products or efforts, which has both financial and ethical impact. So I think it allows us to do the right thing for the right reason and delivering better medications while being mindful of cost, waste, and sustainability across the entire care process.
Yeah, yeah, that added efficiency goes so far, and it over time it makes a massive impact. And like you said, as we retain those resources, we can put those into use in other areas. So,
Mhm.
and actually, as we continue to talk about that, we're gonna do a quick transition here. Dr. Pickett's not the only DVM with us today. We have Dr. Hellner with us as well. He's been an active veterinarian for over 25 years, which is an amazing tenure. And that spans private practice ownership, industry operations, product development, doctor mentorship. So goodness gracious. And of course, regional and national veterinary leadership. He's also the CVO of more than 60, yes, 60 pet paradise resorts and 21 new day veterinary practices. My personal favorite, though, I'm going to just kind of little sidestep here, is that he is the president and co-founder of the Barefoot Football Club. So my first question is, do you guys really play football barefoot?
Yes, that it's the soccer American version is what you're talking about. But yeah, we start the kids off barefooted because it gives them better ball control and it prevents them from just randomly kicking. Because if you do that, it hurts your feet, and so you learn to keep the ball close to you.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. Yes, football, to be clear. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. So, Dr. Hellner, when you're not on the pitch there, you work closely with veterinary teams across the country, as we just said. After learning about the I2F and how it can help with cost savings and efficiency, what were your initial thoughts and how do you see it now?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Pickett said quite a bit about it, but and I'm going to reiterate some of that. But certainly, it's one of those devices that it's really a simple idea, but it's brilliant because it solves a problem that so many professionals have just really over the years just resolved to settle for dealing with. The decrease in spray, the how it prevents bubbles, the negative pressure that's created or that's not created anymore when you're pulling up your medication, less waste. I mean, more accurate controlled drug log keeping, because you're drawing out what you expect to be drawing out and not the spray that comes along with it. So, all of that, when Damea first showed me this device and we started talking about it, I was just like, wow, this is brilliant. I even asked him to let me know when the IPO is. So that's how impressed I was with what he's created. And and in small animal medicine especially, some of these multi-dose drug vials that we use with especially small animals that require small volumes of medication, you end up putting your syringe and needle into that over and over and over again. And, we've come across instances where you've done that so many times that you're actually introducing pieces of the rubber stopper in the bottle into the bottle, which of course then renders the whole thing useless. So this is just a brilliant way to eliminate all of that. And of course it has human medical implications as well. So yeah. Efficiency, safety, accuracy, good stuff.
Yeah, the things we tend to care about most, and in what we do on a day-to-day basis. Even as you were talking through that, I thought of the term, well, we've always done it this way. And I know, as all of us who are innovators and who want to constantly find that added efficiency, we hate hearing that sentence. It's just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean it's the right way or the best way. So thank you for that so much. We really appreciate that, Doctor. Thank you. We're actually we've been spending some time talking to several doctors, of course. We're going to make a little bit of a shift and gain a bit more of a unique perspective here. We're going to talk to Natasha next. And Natasha Nodel has 18 years of experience, and not just any experience. This is so powerful. She has experience in those 18 years in ER and critical care almost entirely in that setting. So more than that, though, it's been interesting. As I've gotten to know Natasha, I've just discovered someone who actually truly cares. And I think sometimes that's something that can be taken for granted, or that we might move past kind of quickly. I have to say, it isn't easy to spend that long being exposed to extreme situations like that and still have that genuine care for the patients. So I just have been so impressed by that with Natasha. So Natasha, having been on, to say it nicely, on the front lines for so long, how do you think I2F would have changed your experience through those last 18 years?
So hello everyone. Definitely, I would say that working in the emergency room, there is a lot of things going on. You have your typical emergencies coming in, you have your patients that you're not sure what is coming in through that door, medications everywhere, all over the place. You have, clients that are obviously not in the right state of mind, and all of this with zero room for any error, to be honest. So the I2F definitely being implemented in the hospital would have made prep time cleaner, and it would have made it safer, which is ultimately a big thing for everyone, including the staff. And I could have definitely seen that there would have been less mistakes, which where seconds count, I think is a huge deal. So definitely.
Yeah, in talking about that, sometimes we can take those few seconds for granted in non-emergency situations, but then when the pressure's on and time counts, every second truly does matter.
So it would have been a lot safer, and just more, which is always appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Safer is, the aim, of course. All right. Well, thank you for those excellent insights. Obviously, we'll probably come back during the Q&A. Let's take a quick moment here and just kind of check in with everybody. We'll toss up another poll here, and this one has more to do with the category of drug. Let's go ahead and get that poll up and running. And again, if you're not seeing it on your screen, you might be finding it in your chat, or in your screen and on your chat. We'll see which way it goes here. All right, so which category of drugs do you think contributes most to waste in veterinary or human healthcare? So we got a bunch of different options there. I'm just going to take a guess here. I want to see how I stack up to the people who really know. All right. Well, I went with controlled substances, but it looks like injectable medications, it took the early lead at 53%. I don't want to give everybody the answer to the test too soon, but it looks like injectable is the way. Looks like the way to go. All right, as we wait for just a few more responses there, we're just going to take a bit of a sidestep here. And actually, we've been very focused, obviously, as everybody has noticed, on the animal care space. And so we're going to make a bit of a shift here to the human care space, which gives me the distinct pleasure of introducing Dr. O'Connor. Just an amazing panelist that we have, as are all of the panelists, of course. So, you know, we could be here all day. I could take another half hour to introduce Dr. O'Connor, but I'll give you a brief sketch of her accolades, along with more than 2 decades of patient care and holding the role of CMO at AII. She is also the CMO and president of the CIIC. And while conducting clinical research, she has authored numerous peer-reviewed publications. She's delivered national and international lectures. So she's used to this whole speaking gig thing, and regularly consults with multiple advocacy groups and pharmaceutical companies. Like I said, the list goes on and on and on, but just as the cherry on top, she also speaks Spanish fluently. So Dr. O'Connor, aside from giving at least me an inferiority complex, what do you see as the biggest, I'd say, crossover opportunities for I2F in human healthcare specifically?
Hola, Nick. I'm just kidding. Thank you for that crazy introduction. I appreciate it. I first, before I answer that, I want to talk about how I got involved with Damea, because you know, it was sort of a circuitous route, but I didn't realize how much I was going to be excited. Because during the pandemic, you know, we all kind of went through staffing challenges, right? Yes, I see nodding. It was pretty rough. So I ended up getting trained on how to do infusions myself in my office, because I was so tired of waiting for staff, or staff calling out, or staff not showing up because of the pandemic. So I learned how to do infusions myself. And in doing infusions, I realized how hard it was, first of all. So it was a very humbling experience for me. But I distinctly remember the time that it took to do the infusions, and how often the bottle that we were done with still had liquid in the bottom and was full of all these bubbles. And I remember thinking, as you said earlier, Nick, I guess that's just the way it is. I guess this is my lack of experience. I'm new at this infusion process. Maybe this is just something I need to accept. But I remember thinking, that's got to be worth a lot of money, that stuff I'm throwing away. But oh well, it's the pandemic. I got to keep moving to the next thing. And then I, you know, the best part, really, or the worst part, was thinking that the medicine was liquid gold, but more important was the eternal search for the elusive vented spike. During the pandemic, it was almost impossible to get vented spikes, and I had to have them, right? So I call that the elusive hunt for the vented spike from the pandemic. Anyway. So again, I thought all that was just my novice status as an infusionist, but then I realized that something brilliant and so simple, as I believe Dr. Hellner said, it's very simple, but so brilliant. When I met Damea, I was like, oh my gosh, there is a solution for this. And I think it goes way beyond even obviously veterinary medicine. When I think about the crossover to human healthcare, the obvious one for me is allergy and immunology. Because as an immunologist and doing IVIG infusions, immunoglobulin, you know, those are very sensitive to that foaming and agitation that Damea mentioned. That can lead to that destabilization. And those are the side effects that can lead to the side effects we see with humans who are getting immunoglobulin infusions. So something relatively mild, like a mild headache, to a debilitating headache, to fever and chills, flu-like symptoms, that kind of thing, to hypersensitivity reactions, the dreaded aseptic meningitis, which I've only seen once, thankfully, but I never ever want to see it again. The patient did well, the patient did fine, but it was really traumatic and very painful. So those side effects hopefully are minimized, and we know that they are with the I2F because of its ability to preserve and stabilize the medication. But I don't want this to all be about me and my specialty, right? So oncology is another great area where I think the I2F would be a natural fit. Those medications are so frightfully expensive. Losing that little bit that I mentioned that I was throwing away, 5%, that can be thousands of dollars. And that not only saves the patient money, it saves the healthcare provider, the infusion center, the clinic, the hospital system, the system overall, insurance companies, payers, everyone benefits. It seems so small, but it really isn't small at all. 5% can be thousands of dollars. And also the time is worth, I mean, everybody wants more time, right? Everybody. So neurology, rare disease. I do a lot of rare disease, and then in the neurology space, multiple sclerosis and others. It's just another area where this could be a very valuable resource. And then I think, again, what Natasha was talking about, the emergency room, critical care. I'm not going to reiterate it too much, but just reminding everyone, just a few minutes over when you add up multiple patients, and when there's an emergency, it can be really add up to be a lot. The other thing is the pediatric population. So I treat patients with PANDAS or PANS, which is a rare disease. And when you have to give a pediatric patient an infusion, especially me giving it, you want it to go as smoothly and as quickly as possible. And oftentimes, some of those patients are paying out of pocket for the medication. You want to keep it as cost effective as possible. So I would just say that there are tons of crossover opportunities for the human side, and I cannot wait to have it available in my clinic.
That's amazing. And just as you went through each of the areas, it really just screamed to me that it is a system-wide need.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it seems like it addresses quite a few different needs in the entirety of the medical system.
Absolutely. And I would say, we thought this is how it has to be, and something so simple and so beautiful can have such an impact. It's just like, how did nobody think of this sooner? We just needed Damea.
I feel like that's a t-shirt. We just needed Damea.
We just needed Damea. I like it.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for those insights. And it's so true. I feel like as I've talked to different nurses and vet techs, and I've handed them the I2F, and as soon as they see it, it just seems so obvious. I oftentimes I hear, well, duh, of course. Why didn't we think of this sooner? So this is truly exciting. So thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Once again, we're going to take a bit of a sidestep, and we're actually going to begin to look at the I2F and its implications from more of a pharmacy perspective. Dr. Klein is joining us, and she has over a decade of experience as a clinical pharmacy specialist in one of the largest health systems in all of Michigan. She has built out an entire substance use disorder clinic from the ground up, truly from scratch, which gives me stress just thinking about the responsibilities that would take. And she also spearheads the Klein Strategic Solutions healthcare consulting firm. So she is running hard. I don't know when she sleeps, but she tells me she does. So I'm taking her at her word. Dr. Klein, how does I2F improve the stability and reduce the waste from a pharmacy standpoint specifically?
Well, thank you, Nick, for that introduction, and thanks for the question. I want to start out by saying that as a pharmacist, when I'm evaluating evidence that's associated with a drug for its role in clinical practice, really the two most important considerations that I'm looking at are its safety and efficacy. So when I think of safety, I'm looking for minimal or manageable adverse effects or hypersensitivity reactions. Really, we want to make sure it's not doing more harm than good. And in terms of efficacy, when the patient is administered a proper dose, does it have the effect it's supposed to have? And so oftentimes when using a vial and syringe for medication delivery, achieving better efficacy and safety can mean additional staff time and labor, kind of specifically in relation to trying to draw up that exact dose and not have air bubbles in that syringe. But not with the I2F. So this is why I was so interested in the product when I saw it. It really eliminates the need to push air into the vial. And then that will reduce air bubbles and prevent foaming. The foaming can lead to the protein aggregation, which can trigger hypersensitivity reactions and decrease efficacy of the drug. So by using the I2F, the medication remains more stable and effective, which is incredibly important from my perspective as a clinical pharmacist. In addition, with the I2F, there's no need to add, so given that there's no need to add air into the vial, really there's less pressure buildup in the vial, and then the med doesn't then spray out when you pull the syringe and the needle out of that vial. So that's preventing the med loss and potential underdosing for a patient. And really it helps with any staff safety risk, especially when working with any hazardous drugs like chemotherapy agents. It's also especially important when dealing with controlled substances and their inventory tracking requirements. Really minimizes the DEA discrepancies from lost controlled substances. And trust me, there's a lot of documentation involved there, and you don't want the DEA coming after you. And as Nick had mentioned, you know, as far as my experience, the last 9 years I spent as faculty in a family medicine residency program. And I was also the program director for our substance use disorder clinic. So we were licensed in the state of Michigan and Joint Commission accredited. And so the last 6 months or so, I spent time training our attending physicians, our medical residents, and our nurses regarding immediate use compounding. And this just recently became a new Joint Commission requirement that all staff that is doing immediate use compounding is trained and evaluated annually to make sure that this process is going smoothly. So in many cases, what I saw is that the trainees experienced either overpressurization in the vial. So when they were pushing the air and trying to draw it up, it was, you know, it's kind of hard to pull back. Air bubbles in the syringe once they drew up the medication, and then med waste, either from squirting out of the vial when the syringe was removed, or if they had an air bubble in that syringe, they were trying to get the air bubble out, and then they'd squirt the medication right out of that syringe as well. And then in terms of my SUD or substance use disorder experience, really that inventory tracking piece and not having to document the extra waste with the controlled substances, it's completely different than a non-controlled waste. Anything that can help with that is going to be incredibly beneficial. And so with all of that said, it's my sincere belief that the I2F will help to revolutionize the medication administration process. And I really look forward to seeing it become widely used in the veterinary and human medicine space in the future.
Yeah, that's so good. And as someone who has consulted and trained countless medical practitioners and experts, you know, it's obvious why you would be passionate about this to us, especially the DEA portion. Yeah, nobody wants that knock on their door.
Absolutely not.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the insights. All right, next we're going to stay in a very similar realm here. Our next panelist is an expert from the pharmaceutical side. Michael Handley is the COO and president of Tivic Health. And before that, he was also CEO of Statera Biopharma, preceded by 3 other pharmaceuticals. So he's got a depth of experience here. He holds numerous patents and has been published in multiple peer-reviewed publications as well. Michael, first of all, so thrilled to have you on the panel. But from your view as a pharma executive, what makes I2F a standout in terms of scalability and safety and adoption?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. First off, appreciate being on this panel. Very humbled to be on a panel of key opinion leaders in the veterinary field and the human field. Being, I think, one of the few business folks on here, yeah, I feel very humbled. There's a lot of people that are much more intelligent than I am. So thanks for that, and I appreciate everybody's input. So yeah, the biopharmaceutical field is not much different than the veterinary field. We spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year on research and development and drug launches. I think Dr. O'Connor mentioned it specifically in the oncology space. I specialize in the immuno-oncology space. You're talking drugs that can cost upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you go into cell and gene therapies, you can be millions of dollars per treatment cycle. So it's very important from a biopharmaceutical perspective and a business perspective that we help the care providers, the doctors out there, treat the patient in the best way they can by improving efficacy, which I2F does, and also decreasing costs. I know there's always a lot of press around there around pharma, big pharma looking to gouge patients, and for the most part, that's not true. We're all here to help patients out and try to get drugs to market that help people and get products to market, including the I2F that has the potential to improve the efficacy profile and also lower costs. So we're very excited about that. And I was just super excited to be working with Damea and the rest of the team, and Dr. Pickett and Dr. O'Connor and the rest of the folks on this panel that all believe in I2F. Our look in scaling this up has to do with regulatory adoption on the side of the biopharmaceuticals. So simply put, we're thinking about this in a way of like kitting this with our current immuno-oncology biologics that we're putting out into the field. And I think kitting this in a way that provides the doctor access to the device, and of course educating them along the way that they are able to decrease aggregation and improve the amount of drug they can pull out of the vial, which is always 5 to 10% waste typically when you're talking to the doctors, especially the oncologists out there that we target for our particular therapeutics. So I think this simple but very useful product, the I2F, will have a huge impact on how doctors think about using drugs and specifically biologics and MABs, monoclonal antibodies, for the treatment of their patients. So we're really excited about it. Damea and I have had multiple conversations about including this I2F kit needle in with our biological production. So when we go to market, it'll already be kitted with it, and we can move it forward and hopefully see easy adoption. Scalability, I think, because it's a simple design, I think it's going to be something that can scale quite nicely into the fields that we're going on. And oncology is a very huge field, right? Close to 50% of the deaths can be attributed to oncology. The other 50% are cardiovascular in the US, roughly speaking, as far as our major mortality rates. So we think this has a very strong place in the human biopharmaceutical side. And I think adoption will come pretty dramatically and pretty quickly once everybody figures out how this works and how it can benefit the patient and how it can benefit the cost.
Yeah, absolutely. That was going to actually be one of my follow-up questions, would be the ease of adoption and how easy it is to because again, like you said, it's a very simple design. And so kitting it together with, especially when dealing with substances of such high value, seems pretty critical.
Yeah. For a stupid business guy like me, it's very intuitive, and I'm sure for the very intelligent doctors on this call, it's even more intuitive that you can use this product to benefit the patient and also save costs for the clinic and for the patient and for the payers that are out there. Obviously, on the human side, we're dealing with reimbursement, which is different from the veterinary side, and reimbursement is not an easy thing to get. And if you can show a way to provide lower costs by using more drug or potentially improving efficacy, I think you have a very strong value proposition there of adoption and having doctors realize that this is something that should be standard practice in their clinics. And we intend to go out with our sales organizations and educate the doctors on this when we start launching drugs, specifically immuno-oncology therapeutics in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, standard of care here is absolutely the aim. That's where we want to get. Well, we appreciate your expertise and insight there, and also like a stupid business guy. As soon as I saw I2F, it immediately made sense to me. So I figured if I could figure it out,
exactly. If a dumb business guy like me can figure it out, yeah, it should be pretty easy for the doctors to figure out. So.
Yeah, they're light years ahead of us there. So, all right. Well, thank you for that. We deeply appreciate it. All right. Before we move on, let's toss up one more poll question. Get everybody, make sure we're staying with it here. We're actually going to be speaking about Dr. Temple Grandin here in just a second. So, for those of you who know who Dr. Grandin is, let's take a guess. How many books? How many books? Don't Google it. No cheating. No cheating. I'm looking at you, Natasha. Don't Google it. All right, I'm going to make my guess. I didn't Google it either. I knew what the question was ahead of time, but I didn't Google it. Oh, well, I'm wrong. Wow. Well, I would be proud to say that I've read 27 books, not alone written 27 books. Goodness, authored. Right. There we go. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate it, Josh. Thanks for tossing that in there. So like we just said, we are going to be hearing from Dr. Temple Grandin next. I know she needs very little introduction, but just to do our due diligence, we're going to go ahead and do that anyway. She is an inventor. That's how many of us know her, is through her numerous inventions and processes that she's introduced to the market. She's also a professor at Colorado State University. She is an acclaimed author, as we just found out, 27 books. I just learned this the other day. She was named in 2010. She was named one of Time's 100 most influential people. They named her a hero for her work around autism advocacy. Huge strides in that area. The biographical film on her life actually won an Emmy and a Golden Globe. I didn't know that either. The list goes on and on. We could be here for quite a while. If you'd like to learn more about Dr. Temple Grandin, it's a very simple website, templegrandin.com. Everybody should be able to get that done. So with that being said, we're actually going to switch to a video here. Let's see some of the highlights from the interview that we were fortunate enough to have with her. Go ahead and do that now.
Hi, my name's Temple Grandin. I am a professor of animal science at Colorado State University. I've been there for many, many years. I started out working with cattle handling in the early 70s when I was about in my 20s. And I went to all the different places and I worked cattle. And I kind of found the good parts of the designs that worked and the things that did not work. But one of the early things I did, which was innovative, was to get down in the chute and see what cattle were seeing. And cattle are afraid of stuff that we're not afraid of. A chain hanging down, a shadow, a reflection on a puddle, a reflection off a truck that's parked by a handling facility, stuff that we would tend to not notice. And I thought to look at these things. It was obvious to me. And one of the reasons it was obvious to me is I'm what's called an object visualizer. That's a person where all of their thoughts are in pictures. You see a solution to a problem. And there's actually scientific research that shows the object visualizer like me, where my memory is sort of like little phone of pictures, is different than the more mathematical thinker who thinks in patterns and the word thinker. In fact, I've written about it in my book on visual thinking. And there's scientific research that shows these different kinds of thinking are different. And they kind of bring different skills into the equation. Like the object visualizer can think up a radical new design for something, but then the other kind of thinker has to make it work. So you need both kinds of minds. And I tell business leaders, your first step is you have to realize there is different kinds of thinking. You know, there's the old thing, artists and the accountants hate each other. Well, part of that is because they think differently. But then we need to look at how we need both of those skills. If you don't have the accountants, your company's probably going to go broke. You do need need all the different skills. And when I first started, I didn't know other people thought more in words. I thought everybody thought in pictures. I couldn't figure out why they thought I was weird for getting in the chute and seeing what cattle were seeing. Back 50 years ago, that was really new stuff. No, now I understand different kinds of thinking. And let's take building a big factory. I've done a lot of work on equipment. The object visualizers, often with no higher math skills and how to do arithmetic, cannot do algebra and higher math, are inventing mechanical equipment for factories. Inventing it and building it and patenting it. And then the more mathematical engineers, like for a food factory, do the refrigeration and the boilers. You see, you need both kinds of thinkers. And oftentimes the visual thinkers don't get enough credit. But oftentimes innovation starts with very simple ideas that people just see it in their mind, how to do it. Another thing I've seen with innovation is that oftentimes there's a new idea that's very simple, but it's very different. My grandfather was a co-inventor of the autopilot for airplanes, and he worked with an autistic guy that came up with this radical, crazy idea for an autopilot for a plane, 3 little coils. And everybody thought it was crazy because everybody in aviation was trying to wire a plane's steering directly to the magnetic compass. And what do you think the plane did? It went like this.
Right.
Yeah. And my grandfather, a mathematically trained engineer, looked at it and goes, I can make that work. So they worked together in a loft and they made it work. Little guys innovate. I mean, look at ChatGPT. That started out as a tiny company.
Very small. In considering the I2F and what we've developed, what do you see as maybe the most advantageous feature of that, just from your perspective?
Well, you're not going to be wasting as much medicine. You're not going to have it squirting around all over the place. I mean, once you see how that works, you go, oh, that's just great.
Yep. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for the insight. Thank you for the wisdom that you've shared with us here. It's been such a pleasure getting to talk with you. Any parting thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I used to say in designing equipment, think simple. Now, this was mechanical equipment. If you can do it with 4 cylinders, can you make it work with 3 air cylinders? Gotcha. Think simple. And sometimes the simple ideas, they just pop into your head.
All right. Yeah. It was such a pleasure and an honor to speak with Dr. Grandin. She actually gave us quite a bit of her time. Yeah, to hear her insights was very powerful. She was actually kind enough to volunteer her time and her expertise regarding the I2F. It was interesting when she saw it and the value that it would bring. She was immediately very enthusiastic and eager to be part of this. So unfortunately, she couldn't join us live here today. Her schedule is pretty extreme. So it was wonderful to take so much of her time. Actually, she spent about an hour on the phone with us, and so you saw just a minor snippet of what she was able to share, but it was wonderful. All right, now that we have heard from so many experts, we would like to hear a little bit from the audience. So just as a reminder, there is the Q&A section available. So if you've had any questions that have come up along the way and maybe you've been holding on to them until now, please feel free to go ahead and drop those in there. But actually, I would like to start by going back to Damea for just a second. Damea, I'd just like to ask you, what's been the biggest, I'd say, surprise that you've experienced since launching I2F?
Oh boy, probably the biggest surprise, the support. The support's been outstanding. This has probably been one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life. I'm not an inventor. I'm not, I'm a nurse by trade, and I was a medic for years. And like I said, this was probably, it's a big feat. Bringing something to the market that is a new idea, and especially being one of the little guys, like Temple was saying, I saw a problem and I thought, I wonder if I can solve the problem. And even after I patented it, I still had, moments where it's like, wow, what is it going to take to get this thing to market? And when you start researching, what is it going to take to bring something like this to the market? I could write a book about the last 5-6 years of my life bringing this device to market, because it's a daunting task, and I would not be able to do it without the people that I've surrounded myself with. That's for sure. But between family and friends, and then all of you that are both on the panel and attending. I know a lot of you, and so yeah, it's definitely not something that one person can do. So that's been really surprising.
Just like raising a child properly, right? It takes a village. So
Absolutely.
This is our baby. All right. Well, awesome. Next question is for Dr. O'Connor. It comes in and it says, are there any specific patient populations that stand to benefit maybe the most from this delivery process or approach?
I mean, I think all patients that are requiring any type of infusion biologic medication would benefit. I mentioned the pediatric population, but certainly I think adults are just as going to take great advantage of this. So I think any patient that requires this type of administration for medication would benefit.
Yeah, that's such a great answer. Thank you for that. Actually, the next one comes in from Michael here. The question is, you talked about many of the advantages of the I2F that it could bring, of course, from a pharmaceutical perspective. What do you think is the biggest advantage I2F has when talking to maybe the pharma decision makers?
Yeah, in my humble opinion, I think it's the potential for improved efficacy. I think that's when I was talking to Damea about this a couple of days ago. When you're talking immuno-oncology specifically, but there's also other disease indications. If you can get a 1 to 2 to 5% advantage because you're getting rid of the aggregation of the protein and allow more protein to interact with its target receptor in the human body, and you get that improved efficacy, that's dramatic. And in my opinion, not to dissuade or down the cost variable of this. Cost is obviously important. But when you're talking about patients and helping patients out, which is why we're all here, whether they're companion animal or human, that improved efficacy, which has always been a problem, protein aggregation. We see it in one of our lead drugs at our company, and we've been working ways around it, and we've been using surfactants and other excipients, which aren't good for the human body. They're not good for the impurity profile of the drug itself. If you can get away from the surfactants and get rid of the aggregation of protein and improve the potential for efficacy, I think that's one of the hugest drivers for us. And I think that would be a huge selling point to our KOLs, key opinion leaders out there, and the other physicians that look to use our products. And that's why we're all here. We're all here to help patients. And if you get, even a marginal, like I said, a 5% improvement in efficacy because your protein is not aggregating and there's more protein available for binding, I think that's a dramatic selling point and use point for this product, and key for the decision makers, whether they're on the formularies at the hospitals or wherever else, that if you can go out and say, hey, because we use this product at this hospital, you can see X% in improvement in efficacy of the drugs that are biologic in nature and use. I think for me, that's one of the biggest drivers. That's why we're all in this field, to help people out.
Wow. Yeah, I had not considered the surfactants like you're mentioning there, and the impact. That's fascinating. Okay, well, thank you for that insight. Yeah, see, I did learn something new. We took that poll, and I wanted to learn something new, and I just did. Thank you for that. That's great. That's great. The next question is actually for Dr. Hellner. Obviously, we know that one of your practices. Have you heard any sort of feedback from your team at that practice, specifically regarding I2F as of yet? And if you're speaking, Dr. Hellner, you are on mute. Did we maybe lose?
He may be having some technical difficulties, Nick.
Okay, that's okay. We got plenty of questions. We can just keep on going. I know we're almost at time, or we are at time, so we'll ask one more and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Dr. Pickett, you are the lucky recipient of the next question. From a clinical perspective, where do you think the biggest opportunity? Like we talked about so many opportunities. Is there one that reigns supreme, do you think?
I think in general, just because of the vet shortages, not only of the veterinarians, but of the veterinary teams, the staff, they're overwhelmed. There's a lot going on, and I truly believe that this will help with their time and their workflow, and any time that they can save, they can help a patient, and I think that means it makes all the difference in the field. So I think all the things are great about this, but one of the biggest things is the time saved for the teams. And then there's just busy. I mean, they're falling over each other because the treatment rooms are crowded, and so any second they can get back in their day, even if it's a second to go sit down and take a break, I mean, means a lot. So
absolutely, when that stress
about Dr. Hellner's team, Tennille, their team out in Georgetown, Texas, uses it, and they love it. I don't know all the details, but I know that she absolutely loves it, and the team loves it. So hopefully, it will get them out to the other practices in their company soon.
That's fantastic. Why am I not?
So you're welcome, Dr. Hellner, wherever you went.
Yeah. Yeah, he owes you now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I can second that. With all of the practices that I visited, even within the last month, you're absolutely right. They are in some situations literally falling over each other. Having to get to the next patient, the next room. So true. It's so true. All right. Well, this discussion has been so wonderful. I'm sure we could keep on going for quite a long time, but again, I know everybody has a schedule and they have to get moving. And I know I speak for our entire audience when I say to the panelists, just thank you so much for your insights. They have been invaluable and just so impactful. Damea, any last parting comments before we wrap up here?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nick. And thanks everyone for coming. This is just the beginning. We're continuing to innovate. And, my question for the nurses, how many times a day does an IV pump stop because the air bubbles in the line? You go to check it and it's not the patient, it's not the bag, it's not, anything like that. It's those tiny air bubbles that are traveling through the IV line, and that triggers the alarm and it stops the flow, right? So we've developed a new design of an IV drip chamber. It's spiral shaped and it prevents the micro bubbles from forming in the first place. And that significantly decreases the number of pump alarms. And so this device is in our pipeline that will be coming to market. So, that's what we do. We solve problems that others accept as normal. And I can't wait for you guys to see what's next.
Yeah, that's exciting. We're not stopping, right? We've got plenty to do, and hopefully nobody says, well, that's just the way it's always been done. So we'll try to avoid that in the future.
Yes, sir.
All right. To our audience, you've been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking an hour of your very valuable time to be here for this. Of course, if you would like more information or have questions that maybe have not been answered, we're definitely here for you. Simply utilize the QR code that you should be seeing on your screen here in just a second, and we'll be happy to continue the dialogue with you. Of course, you can always visit the website. And keep an eye out on YouTube and LinkedIn for some of the highlights from this webinar. Again, thank you, everybody. And on behalf of all of us at AII, we appreciate you and hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.